Well, we're hearing you, and we love the emails that are coming through. I am just, I just, it just makes me feel so good to know that you guys are watching the show and you're listening. And for those of you who have not watched the show before or heard the show, my name is Pandy Pridemore, and we are here to answer your questions to help you better understand how to work within the federal and state employment and labor laws here in the United States. And some of you are international companies who either want to bring companies over, locations, hire people, or maybe you're already here and you're just a little bit, confused about how some of this works. Well, I actually decided to do this show today on some of the questions that are coming in because I can't dedicate a show to every single question. And I realized the other day, some of these questions are absolutely brilliant, but I just don't have enough to spend a whole show on, but they are worthy of answering. So that's what we're going to do today. We're actually going to focus on some of these questions, and I'm going to try to do this a little bit more often because, again, you're the main reason we're here. So let's just start with the first one on the list. A gentleman by the name of Steve reached out and said, look, I just bought several locations in different states, and I now have employees in states that I've never worked in before. I have to have workers' comp there. I said, yes, you do. And Ohio's not always going to cover them. So let's think about getting a policy and specific to that particular state or each of the states where you have an employee residing. But what he also needed to understand is that when he does that, he also needs to understand that each state has a different reporting time period. One state might want to know of that injury within 3 days. Another state might say, well, I don't care. You can call us 12 months from the accident. We don't care. But as employers, you need to understand what those requirements are. And you also need to know if the state itself has a specific form. The first report of injury form that Ohio requires will not work for Texas. It will not work for Missouri. So ask these questions when you're completing the application for that insurance. And if you already have workers' comp in other states, ask the question of, hey, give me the details so that I can make sure the team in that area understands how to report a work-related injury. Thank you, Steve, for that one. The next one's from Erica. Erica called and said, we actually use our payroll system for the completion of the new hire paperwork. And she went on to say that they send that link to the new hire well over a week sooner than the date of hire. So it's pre-work. We're going to send you this link. We know you're not going to start for a week and a half, but go ahead and send in your banking information and all the other details. And oh, by the way, the I-9 is in there. So complete the I-9. Well, what she didn't realize is that the I-9 within the payroll system is a convenience. It is not for payroll reasons. Yes, they have to have the Social Security number, but they can get the Social Security number off the W-4. They don't need an I-9 to get the Social Security number. And you can put a birth date in manually. The I-9 is separate from the IRS. It's separate from wage and hour. And also, if you read the instructions, you are not to ask for documentation and the information needed to complete Section 2 until the first day of hire. Day 1, day 2, you have until day 3 to collect that documentation. And even if you're doing it electronically for convenience, you still need to do a tactile inspection of the documentation the employee's providing. I stress this. I stress this because so many of you, and this question has come up a number of times. It's great to have the convenience, but please don't let it lead you to believe that it is circumventing the requirements of Homeland Security in the completion of that document. So go back to your instructions and verify. First day, second day, third day. Those are the 3 days documentation is supposed to be collected. And talk to your payroll company. Tell them we want to bypass the I-9 when it comes to the completion of the documentation or the downloading of the documentation. They can complete it electronically for Section 1, but leave it there. Print it out, do your tactile inspection, and then download the documents back if you want to keep them electronic. Erica, that was just a brilliant question. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Greg reached out about co-ops and interns, and probably a number of you, with the seasons changing, are getting the question of, well, will you take an intern? Will you hire a co-op? And he's very excited about the candidate that he has for his internship. But his question was, is there anything I should know that's different between a co-op and an intern and all my other employees? And it's a very astute question because interns are different. Co-ops are different. So let's talk about that. Definitely we want to give them an offer letter because we want to make sure that they understand they are going to be subject to our rules and regulations. And second of all, we want them to understand that there's going to be a start date and an end date. Internships aren't meant to be forever. Co-ops are not meant to be forever. And the individual who is the intern or the co-op needs to understand, I cannot expect regular employment after this. So I even include in my offer letters for this classification, I put in the completion of the internship is no guarantee of regular employment. Put it in writing. Look, if your internship ends, we'll evaluate the needs of the business. Maybe we will keep you, and maybe we won't. Maybe you don't even want to stay. It's easier to terminate and deactivate an individual who knows there's an end date and knows that there's no regular employment after that date than to have to go through the entire termination process. So yes, please remember to put those things in if you have the same question, if you're going through the same type of situations. I also recommend that you stress in that offer letter that the individual is non-exempt. We're going to compensate you hourly. And the reason with that is most co-ops and interns are coming in for education, right? They're coming in for experience. They're trying to decide if this is really where they want to be. Most internships and co-ops are not at a level where they can exercise discretion and authority independently, which if you go back to the qualifications for exempt status, almost every single one of those classifications require the ability to exercise discretion and authority. And co-op and intern should be coming and asking questions. They should be doing what you've asked them to do because, again, they're learning. So don't make the mistake of bringing an intern in and you're having to train them. You're having to show them the ropes. You're having to, build up their level of experience and expertise, and you're working them like a dog on a salary. Okay, that's going to get you into trouble. So, Greg, thank you. You knew more about this than you realized. I'm glad I was able to confirm some stuff for you on that one. We had Jen who reached out and said, hey, we've got a company that we're working with. And it turns out we found out that he has employed some individuals, and he's out of the country. It's an international company. And they've employed some individuals here in the United States and given them access to our software. I mean, our internal customer lists, our internal pricing, our internal, hub. And we're concerned because they're here in the United States that they're going to take our information, which is most definitely proprietary, and use it against us. Any of them can leave and maybe even start their own company using all this information that we've spent decades building. Can we ask for a confidentiality statement? Can we ask for a non-solicitation form document? And the question, or excuse me, the answer to the question, Jen, is absolutely. You have every right to. In fact, it would be foolish for you not to. You have every right to protect your company. And if that means restricting the access to such non public information, you do it. You automatically do it. And that may not be comfortable for your vendor, but he's going to have to look at it from the standpoint that that's just good business. You're only exercising good businesses to protect yourself. I know leased employees that go and work offsite with a client company, and they're required to sign that confidentiality statement as well as their employer's confidentiality statement. Non-public is non-public. And just because you're working with a vendor does not mean that that vendor gets to do whatever he wants to do if he has access to your proprietary information. So if you don't have one of these forms, please, please, please remember they're legal documents. A consultant cannot do that for you. You have to go to an employment and labor law attorney to draw up that language to make it enforceable. And don't go to AI, for goodness sakes. Get off the AI kick on these legal documents, because chances are they're not going to be enforceable. And let me just remind everybody, I think, in my opinion, there are more attorneys being debarred right now because of their use of AI. So don't get trapped in that. Get a legal document that's enforceable. And there's only one place you can do that. And trust me, you know how many attorneys I work with. So if you don't have one, just let me know, and I will send you the names and numbers of some very, very competent attorneys who will draw these documents up for you. Karen had a great question about payroll. She's new to the company. She's processing payroll for her employer. And the question was, well, we're making a lot of corrections because the employees forget to clock out, or a supervisor claims that an individual they did take a break but didn't clock out for the break, and he wants to make sure the payroll records changed. And her question was, well, can I just go in there and do that? Well, Karen, I'm so happy that you asked, because no, actually, you can't do that without some kind of documentation, some kind of a trail to say that both parties, employee and employer, approve of the change. They agree to the change. And this is why the change had to happen. This is what occurred, and this is what the remedy was. Think of it this way. If somebody's walking by the desk of the payroll person and says, hey, I need to change my tax exemptions. So can you change me from 0 to 4? And I don't want to be married anymore. So put me down as a single. And the payroll person just goes in and does it. Without a new W-4, without any indication that that conversation ever really happened. And then the individual realizes they didn't pay enough at the end of taxes, or the spouse found out that, yeah, you can see where this is going. So payroll has to be well documented. Even if you're using one of the most sophisticated payroll companies, keep in mind, think about how that happens. If you're using one of the big boys in the payroll companies, I'll have systems set up so that supervisors can go in and make corrections. The employee sees the alert and goes in and says, yes, I agree. There's your paper trail. There's your timestamp. All parties are on the same page. And that's what you need. So, Karen, great question. I just keep that kind of questions coming, because that's excellent. The last question came from a gentleman by the name of Steve. I had a week of Steves. And this question was in regards to post-accident drug testing. He found out through his team that they're not doing post-accident testing every time there's an incident. And the question was, are we talking about medical related accidents and incidences, or are we just talking about incidences? Somebody, wrecked or put a dent in the truck, or somebody tripped over a chair or something. And he said, well, they're kind of picking and choosing. If somebody gets hurt, then they'll go ahead and do a post-accident. But if somebody just falls off a chair, they're not going to. And I said, well, that's interesting because let's go to your policy. What does your policy say? And the reason I'm doing that is because keep in mind, whatever you have in writing should be your practice. Now, I allow for some discretion every so often, and that's okay. But his policy specifically said post-accident testing, drug testing, should occur at the event of any accident involving company property. You heard the operative terms? Any accident. It wasn't any accident involving medical attention. It wasn't any accident happening off-site, any accident involving non-employed individuals. No, it was any accident. So the fact that they were only picking and choosing who they wanted to do post-accident testing on was in violation of his policy. And you see where that's going. Someone could claim discrimination, bias, even harassment. It was a wonderful, wonderful indicator for Steve to go back and say, maybe I should be looking at my entire handbook. Maybe I should be looking at what are we actually doing versus what we have in writing. Then we also talked about, well, what about your team and the voices that represent you? Do they know what's in the handbook? Because they're your representatives, right? They're 90% of your HR is being done by the boots on the ground. If they don't know the policies, whether it's post-accident testing or attendance or work conduct, if they're not speaking the language of the company, you obviously have some major training to do, because that's a huge loophole for someone wanting to sue your company or find a reason to cause problems. All of you, Greg, Steve, Jen, Karen, Erica, Steve, these are great questions. And again, I apologize for not doing this type of a show earlier. I will definitely not make that mistake moving forward because all your questions are important. But let me send you another reminder that June 18th coming up, we're having a live Facebook show on, and it's titled, let me say, Human plus Machine, Evolving the Human Resource Role. With AI coming into HR, what future do we have? And how should you, in that role, in whatever capacity you have, what should you be thinking about and how should you be preparing for it? I've got a great lineup for you. So please put it on your calendar. And in the meantime, send me your questions. That's what we're here for at The Human Resource.